Hey everyone, my name is Lizzie and today we'll be talking about my Coke wash and what went wrong. Well, first of all, let's see if things are actually going right and I'm just not aware. So we're gonna make a test and see if the wash is fermenting or if it's just stagnant. Because I have the wash right here. And this little buddy has been giving me issues. We've been going through a rough patch. But don't worry, let's see if it's salvageable or not. I might have to throw it away depending on if it doesn't work. So this is what you should do whenever there's a wash that's giving you a little issues and it does not want to ferment into alcohol. So the first thing I do is, well, let me tell you what's the first thing I saw. So first of all, I didn't see any bubbles at all inside the jar. So I had to put it in a warm room. That room has a heater, and usually when I put this jar inside the room with the heater, the yeast activates itself since yeast is happy when it's hot, and then it starts bubbling. This one started bubbling, but very faintly. So what I did, I had to make sure that the lid was closed. Just a little tip, if you have weak hands like I do and you want to open a lid, just put a rubber band around it and it should make things easier. I might have to get up. Harder than I thought. So that was so tight because I made sure that I tightened the lid. So once you tighten the lid, you know that the CO2 will not escape from the lid, but from the airlock. So I retightened the lid super tight that it took me 3 takes to open it. And I was expecting the CO2 to come out of the airlock, however, nothing. So, by the way, as I opened the lid, little parentheses, it smelled like Coke and no alcohol. So that's a sign that it's not fermenting. Yeah, no signs of alcohol there. So going back to when I closed the lid, I left it out in regular temperature. Nothing was happening once again. So I had to put it back inside the room, the hot room. And then I started seeing bubbles after a few days. So I usually wait a few days once I start the fermentation. I wait maybe 3-4 days, and if there's still no activity, then that's when I start to troubleshoot. But the first day, if there's no bubbles, do not fret. Sometimes it takes the yeast a little time to get activated. So this is 3-4 days after I pitched in the yeast and I closed the lid. So I put it back in the hot room and it started bubbling a bit. However, it only bubbled while it was in the room. Usually once I remove it from the room, the bubbling still continues because the yeast is still active. However, this time the bubbling stopped. There's a little bubbles in here, as you can see. So we have to just double check if that's good bubbles or not. It could just be the residual fizz from the Coke, because I did see at some point bubbling and I was wondering to myself, is that the fizz or is that the yeast at work? So we have our answer now, it's the fizz, but in order to make sure, we need to test it with a hydrometer. So I have this here, and let's test the gravity of your wash. So if it's still at 1.05 or higher, that means that it didn't work at all. If it's lower than 1.05, for those who would like to know why 1.05, I made a little video on Coke fermentation. You can watch it here. And the starting gravity of Coke is 1.05. So it's supposed to get lower and lower as the days go by. And let's test that out. I have a little scooper, metallic scooper here. Honestly, this does not look good. There's a little rim just not looking pretty right now. This might just be Coke and yeast together without any reaction. This is the moment of truth. Putting this in. No way. It's at 1.026. 1.026 meaning there was a little fermentation happening. So there could be a little alcohol inside. Just gonna taste it. Smells bad. I can't do it. No, I'm not tasting it. By now, if there's alcohol in it, you should smell it because I started this wash on October 3rd. I wrote it on a little post-it and we are now October 18th. So it's been we're October 16th. So it's been 13 days, almost 2 weeks, and it's supposed to smell a little bit like alcohol. So that's a red flag. Another thing that I could do if you've tried heating it up, if you've tried closing the lid, if you tried stirring the yeast, I also tried stirring the yeast to see if it can invigorate it and activate it. If nothing works, to start fermentation, there's always the pH testing. So today I brought my digital pH meter and the pH strips, so we can have, just in case one is not reliable, I have 2 ways to measure it here. So we'll start with the digital pH meter. Gotta turn it on. And last time I was having difficulty with this, that's why I brought the pH strips. Okay, so the pH is roughly at 2.61, and that's a fact about Coke. It's very acid, so that doesn't surprise me, that number. If you're making a wash with Coke, expect it to be under 5, definitely, in pH levels. And just in case, we can have we can test it with pH strips. Just gonna dip it in for a few seconds. Okay, it's orange. Orange meaning yeah, it's close to the 3 range. 3 or even worst case 4, but it's definitely on the acidic side. So they can agree that this is really acid. And one thing you can do is if you have an acid wash, you can put in baking soda. Baking soda is going to make it less acid. However, I've tried putting baking soda in a previous wash and it made it disgusting. It just tasted like baking soda. So I would not suggest that.
When I tried increasing the pH of my previous wash, I went with baking soda because it was more familiar to me. However, after researching a bit on the internet, there's also potassium bicarbonate that can increase pH and calcium carbonate. These seem a little chemical, so I didn't want to use these. And since these are chemicals, I wouldn't use too much of this in future washes. I also read that in order to increase pH, you can add pickling lime. This for me is a little shocking because lime resembles lemon characteristics and lemon decreases pH. It does not increase it. Okay, so I found out that pickling lime is less close to lime. It's a sort of calcium hydroxide that makes pickles crispy. And it's in the form of powder.
Drop a comment below if you have any other ingredients or any other products that you can add into your wash to make it less acid and make it not affect the taste of your alcohol. For me, if I have an acid wash, I would just throw it away because I'd rather have another batch without a bunch of chemicals and without disgusting baking soda taste, that has a good pH from the beginning. So I have the option, because I see that some fermentation has started with this Coke, I have the option to let it sit there, try to troubleshoot it a bit more until it reaches 1.000 gravity. But I doubt that I'm gonna do that. And just a little tip is that Coke is different than a regular wash. So the thing with Coke is that it has preservatives, and that can also inhibit the yeast. Preservatives and yeast do not work together well, and in my opinion, that's the main reason why this wash didn't work or is not going as planned. For this Coke wash, I even added yeast starter, which I add all the time, and it just wasn't bubbling. So drop a comment below if you've ever made alcohol with Coke before. I'm curious to know if it's actually something that can happen. I've seen videos, but we don't know the final result. So just letting you know here what happened with mine. It was a no-go. And if you'd like to make experiments or try new washes, you can always book a class below. We make alcohol from different ingredients. And if you found this video valuable, share it with a friend. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.